Hollywood has always been in the business of dreams. Glittering lights, glossy romances, and grand illusions, all projected on screens larger than life. But behind the shimmering fantasy, the real-life stories of love often told a much darker truth, especially if that love crossed the color line. In the early to mid-20th century, interracial relationships in America weren't just taboo. In many states, they were illegal. Hollywood, ever mindful of its public image and its box office profits, quietly enforced its own set of invisible rules. Rules that kept black and white stars apart, at least in public. And yet, love refused to obey. Some of the most captivating stars of their era risked careers, reputations, and, in some cases, even their lives, just to be with someone society told them they weren't supposed to love. In this documentary, we'll explore 6 interracial Hollywood couples who defied the system. From Sammy Davis Jr. and Kim Novak's hidden affair that triggered death threats, to Whoopi Goldberg and Ted Danson's public relationship that turned into a media firestorm. These aren't just love stories, they're stories of resistance. Because in Hollywood's golden age, falling in love wasn't always romantic. Sometimes it was revolutionary. Sammy Davis Jr. and Kim Novak. He was the Rat Pack's dazzling dynamo, singer, dancer, and all-around showman. She was Columbia Pictures' icy blonde goddess. But in 1957, Sammy Davis Jr. and Kim Novak did the unthinkable. They fell in love across racial lines. Their relationship wasn't just frowned upon, it was dangerous. Novak was under contract with Columbia Pictures, and its infamously racist studio boss, Harry Cohn, allegedly flew into a rage when he learned about the affair. According to biographers, Cohn feared a scandal would ruin Novak's rising career, and more importantly, damage the studio's box office prospects. So Cohn allegedly turned to the mafia. Sammy Davis Jr. was allegedly kidnapped, brought before mob enforcers, and warned, "Marry a black woman within 24 hours, or else." He complied, hastily wedding singer Lorraine White in a short-lived sham marriage. The romance with Novak was over. Neither star spoke of the relationship for decades. This wasn't just studio interference, it was racial terrorism, disguised as PR management. Davis would later say, "Nobody could understand why I wanted to marry Kim Novak, but we were in love. I guess that didn't matter." Their love was erased before it had a chance to survive, but their silence only made the truth more haunting. Dorothy Dandridge and Peter Lawford. Dorothy Dandridge was the first black woman nominated for a Best Actress Oscar, a trailblazer in every sense. But behind the glamour, Dandridge lived in a world where love came with a price. In the 1950s, she reportedly entered a secret romance with Peter Lawford, a white British actor and brother-in-law to John F. Kennedy. Lawford was part of the Hollywood elite, but Dandridge's stardom came with painful caveats. She could be adored on screen, but not kissed. Worshipped in tabloids, but not welcomed in white America's drawing rooms. Their romance, though deeply felt, was never made public. Studio contracts, fear of scandal, and racial taboos kept them apart in the open. According to Dandridge's biographers, her relationships with white men, and especially Lawford, were treated as liabilities by studios and agents. The industry had a cruel habit of punishing her for them. She was passed over for roles, criticized for her choices, and ultimately left adrift. Her life ended tragically in 1965, a death clouded by financial ruin and loneliness. Dandridge once said, "If I were white, I could capture the world." Her love life, kept in shadows, is a chilling reminder that even romance was rationed by the color line. Eartha Kitt and Charles Revson. Eartha Kitt was unbothered by society's rules. A singer actress and activist with a sultry purr and razor-sharp intellect. Kitt wasn't afraid to love on her own terms. In the 1960s, she reportedly entered a relationship with Charles Revson, the white founder of Revlon and one of the wealthiest men in America. Revson was enchanted by Kitt. The two were often seen together at high society functions, sparking whispers that became roars. Revson, already divorced, reportedly wanted to marry her, but his elite white social circle was appalled. Friends and business partners pressured him to end it. In public, their relationship was tolerated, but behind closed doors, Kitt faced sneers, slurs, and rejection. The woman who had seduced Parisian audiences and sang for presidents was still too black for New York's ruling class. Kitt, who once said, "I'll fall in love with the person, not the color," refused to let racism dictate her life, but the cost was steep. The relationship eventually dissolved. And Kitt continued to face marginalization, not just for being black, but for being bold. Their love showed how even extreme wealth couldn't shield interracial couples from America's oldest disease.
Sidney Poitier and Joanna Shimkus. Sidney Poitier was Hollywood's first black leading man, the first to kiss a white woman on screen, the first to win an Oscar for Best Actor, and one of the first to marry a white woman in full view of the world. In 1976, he married Canadian actress Joanna Shimkus. They met on the set of The Lost Man in 1969, during a time when interracial marriage was still controversial. Poitier had been navigating delicate racial politics his whole career, always poised, always dignified, always cautious. Their relationship quietly began amid that tension. Shimkus, soft-spoken and elegant, was not only his equal in talent but in resilience. Hollywood barely knew how to process the sight of a black man in love with a white woman and at peace. Unlike other couples who were punished by the industry or torn apart by the public, Poitier and Shimkus weathered the storm with silence and strength. They were rarely featured in headlines, which may have saved them. Together for over 40 years, theirs was a rarity in any corner of show business, a love that endured gracefully without apology. Poitier once said, "We knew what we were getting into, but we loved each other." In a town that had built its foundations on illusion, their love was astonishingly real. Whoopi Goldberg and Ted Danson. By the early 1990s, you'd think America had moved on from interracial hysteria. Then came Whoopi Goldberg and Ted Danson. Their relationship, which began in 1992 after co-starring in the comedy Made in America, was one of the most talked about and ridiculed romances of the decade. Goldberg, the outspoken Oscar-winning comedian and actress, and Danson, the beloved white star of Cheers, went public with their relationship at a time when the media had no mercy. But it wasn't their love that caused the greatest scandal. It was a roast. In 1993, at a Friars Club roast for Goldberg, Danson appeared in full blackface, delivering racially charged jokes that stunned even the seasoned audience. Goldberg had helped write some of the material, but the optics were catastrophic. Critics accused Danson of racism, Goldberg of self-hatred, and their relationship was pushed into an impossible spotlight. They broke up shortly afterward. Goldberg defended the roast, but the damage was done. Their love story was reduced to a punchline, even though it had started with genuine affection. Looking back, it wasn't just the roast that ended things. It was the unrelenting pressure of being the wrong couple at the wrong time in a country still deeply confused about race. Their breakup wasn't just personal. It was cultural. In the America of old, and arguably still today, interracial relationships were never simply private affairs. They were political acts, especially when they played out in the public eye. Throughout much of the 20th century, interracial marriage was illegal in dozens of U.S. states. It wasn't until 1967, in Loving versus Virginia, that the Supreme Court ruled bans on interracial marriage unconstitutional. But social acceptance was much slower. Hollywood mirrored this discomfort. Studios discouraged interracial pairings both on-screen and off. Executives feared backlash from conservative audiences, particularly in the South. Even rumors of mixed-race relationships were enough to sink careers. And when the stars dared to love anyway, the world often punished them. Newspapers stayed silent, publicists lied, tabloids, when they did report, did so with veiled racism. The system didn't just erase these romances, it criminalized them, ridiculed them, or buried them under scandal. And yet these couples existed. They found love in the unlikeliest places, between movie sets and society columns, in secret apartments and stolen weekends. They endured threats, betrayals, and heartbreak. But they also carved out moments of joy, defiance, and truth. Today, their stories remain largely untold. Even now, in an era of supposed progress, interracial couples still face scrutiny, especially those in the public eye. But the ghosts of these early lovers linger, reminding us that the path to love has always been paved with courage. Their stories matter, not because they were perfect, but because they were real, and because they dared. Hollywood has always sold the fantasy of love, but when that love threatened to dismantle the fantasies of whiteness, tradition, or silence, it was treated as scandal, not romance, because behind every glamorous frame of Golden Age Hollywood was a deeper reality, one filled with fear, bravery, and sometimes just enough love to challenge the world. If you liked this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more untold Hollywood histories.